today's our first class, week 1, and now we're recording our video. So again, the first part of class, the policies, those things are not that important for the video, right? The video is there for the learning part of recording 3D Max and all the tools. But eventually here, you guys will create a portfolio for this class. And this portfolio, the idea here is to tell a story of all the work you did here, right? And the way you tell a story is by showing your renderings from day 1 all the way to the last day of class. Yeah, that's why we do renderings every week, right? And we have those weekly renderings in class because you start to document, let's say, 5 renderings every class, right? That's gonna showcase a progress, right, of the work. So eventually, if you're going for like an internship, you're applying for a job, it's not good to only show your best work, right? Most people like to see the progress, right? How did you get to that work, What did you modify? How did you make the background? So by showing that whole story, you can tell everything you can do and showcase all your skills for your renderings. So this was Lydia. She did this very nice looking portfolio cover page. Also, we have again, at this point, you guys know how to use InDesign, right? You know how to design a portfolio, right? Somewhat, okay? Cover page, table of contents. That's so important for the design of the portfolio, right? Because your work can be the best, but if it's shown in a really bad portfolio, it's gonna look horrible, right? So the portfolio needs to emphasize and enhance your work as you show it. So in this case, first part of class is the beginning phase, learning the basics, so materials, right? Doing basic modeling, applying basic materials, learning about glossiness, learning about water, learning about transparencies. You document all those things here in the class. In this case, for this class, we did the Mies van der Rohe pavilion space. Do you guys recognize this building?
Yes.
And again, this building exists, right? So, and I typically like to pick buildings that are real, just to connect more to the class. And then we looked at the building, and then we went through every single step to try to make that 3D model as realistic as possible. From early renderings, experimenting with water, materials, skies, then dealing with light, shadows. Let me see if we can. Yeah, shadows, environment, grass. Doing some advanced materials like chrome or metallic elements. Looking at more advanced looking realistic renderings. And a key thing about this is the lighting, and how to get shadows, because having shadows through your whole space adds a lot of realism to your renderings. Getting grass that looks realistic, it's important. Mixing light again with shadows, and of course here we have also reflections, adds to the realism of the renderings. We also explored evening, night renderings with artificial lights, LED lights, water reflections, different skies and backgrounds. Again, going to like night. So even at night, we can still get shadows, right? From the moonlight, for example, right? We can get a nice, looking at evening lights. In this case, the lights are set on the floor and they're pointing upward. Working with spotlights to create, focus into the statue. Looking at LEDs for the, for the experience, for the atmosphere. And looking also at 360 panoramic renderings. So these right now are meant to be shown in a different software. Once everything gets wrapped into a sphere, then you can technically see around the whole space in a very nice, clear way. So I'm not sure which building we'll do yet in class. I'll pick it out later, but we'll do the same process, right? This part here, in the beginning, I think we can show more because we'll have more rendering. So just you can do week 1, week 2, week 3, right, to showcase these things. And again, look at the portfolio layout. Nice. We can see this project 2, nice title, descriptions. Everything's organized well. There's a nice grid to it. You can always see what's being shown, and renderings tend to get small or big depending on their what? Yes, resolution, and also their hierarchy, right? The early renderings, like here, do they have to be the full page? No, right? So typically small renderings or medium are work in progress, right? That you're showing more. Once you get down to your final renderings, then these should definitely be a full page. Why? Why? Yes.
It's what sells your product.
Exactly. This is getting you a commission, right? So you want to show your expertise, right? If you show it,
the same format?
I'm sorry?
The same format that we have.
No, I mean, so every student has, so a portfolio is like a design project, right?
Okay.
I can't say this is your cover page, that's your table of contents. The key thing is to understand what's important, right? Like when you make a portfolio page layout, you look at the underlying grid systems, right? That you can't see, right? So if I show you guys another portfolio from a different student, let's say, let's try here. That was Lydia, let's try JP. They will all have their own style, which is fine. The key thing is the style clear? So this is another person's cover page, right? Then this is their table contents. Yes, maybe more boring, more typical, right? But it's still clear, right? I do like to add more of the design. So this one here, it's more interesting as a, this looks more like a magazine table of contents. Here it looks more like a book table of contents. But the work, again, it's still organized. The pages is nice. The beginning is the, early renderings here. Although it's not really that organized, I would say, because it's, simply a title in the middle, right? You don't want to see the outlines of the renderings. And I just don't like this font. It's not really architectural, right? And as architects, we're very picky, right? With alignments and fonts and things being, so. But again, the work looks good. What's that? I like a font that doesn't have all those little details at the edges. So if you look at this one here, what's good about this font here? It's just clear, straight lines, right? Nothing more. So this is something for us, if we do some hand sketching, right? Or hand lettering, we don't do little details at the end. Like here, this font here is meant for like papers, books, novels, right? And you see there's a lot of extra detail on the end, on the P, right? So it doesn't look as architectural, right? But the work is great, nice work here, good, it's organized pretty well. Here, like here, if I saw this here, I would think it's boring, right? Page 1 here, page 2, page 3. Why is this boring? Repetitive in what way? The same. Again, this is not portfolio class, but I am very big on design and portfolio and those things. And I want your work to look good, right? If I saw this and it's the same layout, it starts to get boring. To the point that I might just flip to the pages and I'll skip all the best work you have. Again, if you're gonna show a final rendering, just do the whole page, right? Blow it up, especially if it's a PDF. The work is okay. The grass needs some work, right? It's too what?
Dark.
Don't be afraid to critique, right? Dark, okay, probably yes. So if you look at this rendering here, right, and you look at this rendering here, because everyone should have here the exact same rendering, and this one here, let's say, let's see, and this one here. Look at this rendering, and this one here. No shadows, right? No shadows make this thing appear really, really flat, right? What else is missing?
This one is very long. Like the shadows like big, long.
Yes. So with shadows, break up the light, right? So we have, different hot spots of light here, right? Even the grass appears more three-dimensional, right? When there's no shadows, the grass appears flat, right? The wall appears flat, right? So how do I get these shadows here, like she has? It just takes time, right? You put the sun, you're rendering. I don't like it, move the sun. I don't like it, move the sun. And you keep moving the sun until you get shadows you like. There's no like you do A, B, and C and it's done. You have to do many tries. Next, look at the grass. Why does this grass look better than this grass? Huh?
It's like when you're under a tree and there's light shining through, naturally the light is going to filter.
Yes.
It's not filtering through.
One more thing also, when you guys learn to make grass, we can learn to make the grass. If you look at this grass here, right, it looks like it's dying, it's not dense enough, right? We can play with the density. Here the grass is dense enough so you can feel all the little details. Here you can see kind of the ground and the detail, so it's lacking some, some details there. This rendering, it's a nice rendering and all, but it's missing one key thing. The light, right?
It's too dark.
Too dark, yes, the light is. This is actually a lot better. The light is actually shining here and capturing the light into a beautiful chair. Also, the chair here, even though there's no one sitting here, is there for a reason, right? To connect the person to that rendering. Why? Because you can imagine yourself sitting here and looking at the main focus, in this case, the statue, right? So you want to put elements there that give the viewer an idea of where to look, right? Or where's the main focus in the space. Here it's okay, but it's a little dark. Dark, yes. That, I said, experiments. Is it realistic? Probably not, right? More like, it's not. This is actually 9 is a little better because we have darker. But another problem here is this material is too pixelated, right? It's not really high definition. Here, what would you say needs to be done better here?
Can you do the lighting of it?
Yeah, the light, it's a bit off, right? It's a bit too
Too bright.
too bright, yes. Yes, too bright, too much of green, blue tones. And then I guess that was the crazy time he did more stuff like that. There are filters in 3D Max, like Photoshop, where we can adjust brightness, contrast, saturation, right? Not really what I expected you guys to do, but let's see somebody else. Let's look at also MG here. Again, a very nice, elegant portfolio cover page. Nice table of contents, follows the idea here. The work, and here showing, transparencies, water, bumps, the project. And this I like here because he shows 3 different sizes, right? The first size is the process, very small renderings, right? Showing all the work. He might show a big one here, then he might go back to a different size. These are final renderings. So what do you think of this rendering here?
Better than the other ones.
Okay, yes, but again, don't be afraid to critique.
It's a little green.
It could be a yes. You can always play with desaturation, right, with the image. Lighting is pretty good. I will probably try to bring some shadows there if I can. But overall, it's not too bad. Process, again, then we look at the evening renderings. Evening again. And then we go to the night renderings, so the same space. Like this one here. What's wrong with this image here?
Where's the water?
Is what?
There was water.
The water's here, right? Yes. Well, that's actually, if water is completely still, it will act like a mirror, so it's actually fine. But what about the light here?
The exposure is too high.
When the light is just pure white, it means it's so bright that it can't read any color. So right now the exposure here is too bright, right? So for the lights, always look for parts that are like this, where it's just pure white. The grass is a little long, but it's not too bad. And then we have the panoramic renderings towards the end. So does that give you a good idea what the class kind of is going to focus, right? What you guys can do? Yeah, okay.
I never done that before, but I'm gonna tell her.
Well, it's okay. I mean, I think, in this school, this is your first class on 3D Max. No one else does 3D Max, so it's okay. I think we're all at the same level here with knowing nothing about 3D Studio Max, right?
Absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing, yes, so don't worry. You're probably one of the youngest students that, with design, only taking design 2, right?
Yeah.
To take the class. But there's really no prerequisite for this class. Anyone can take it. So, and I think if you get it early on, I think it's great because you have a skill that you can take to every class afterwards.
Yeah, because I gotta take design 3 next semester.
Yeah, so you'll be ready for design 3, yes.
Yeah.
And that's a housing project, I think.
I'm supposed to take it now.
Yeah.
But I missed it.
That's okay. All right, so I'm not going to show more portfolios. I think you guys get the idea of the class here. All right, so I think, let me just go at this again. Somebody walked in just now. Is it Kevin?
Yeah.
Kevin, okay. So try to be here on time next time. Okay. So right now I'm missing only Nabeen. Okay, we'll finish here. All right, guys, so now let's focus on 3D Studio Max. All right, so first of all, where do you get 3D Studio Max? That's the first thing. So have you already used AutoCAD?
I've used it a little bit last semester.
Okay, so everyone here should have an Autodesk account, right? So as students, you guys get free anything Autodesk, Revit, AutoCAD, 3D Max, right? It's just, you know, you make an account, you know, it will. I'm not sure what it asks for students, but you guys might know more than me.
I think you gotta use your student account.
Student account, yeah?
Yeah.
So you go here, and once that's done, you can download 3D Studio Max 2024 and install it.
Yeah.
And it's good for 1 year, right? As long as you're a student, you can keep using the software. So that's the first thing there. Just get 3D Studio Max, get 2024, and install it. Right? It should install in any computer. If you have a Mac, just double check because I typically has a hard time with Macs. So yeah, you'll figure it out. And once you log into your account, you should be able to go to Student and see there all the different softwares it has, right? So that'll be the easy part for this class. Next class, we'll look at V-Ray, but I'll cover that in the next class for you guys. We're now just focused on basic 3D Studio Max. Once you get 3D Studio Max and you launch it, let's see here. We're gonna get this over here, right? This is the basic interface for Max. So if you know Rhino, if you know AutoCAD, some things are similar, right? We're working now with viewports, right? What are viewports? And why they're important for us to use as architects? Yes, because we can see different things, right? We can see the top view, the front view, the side view, maybe a perspective view, maybe something axonometric, right? And you can start to look at every detail of the project throughout the space. So let's break this class today into just practicing the basic interface. So the first thing you see here is we have 4 different windows, right? These are your viewports. You can click on each one and you're gonna see a little kind of brown outline for every topic here. You're gonna see also this here. What do you think that is?
The navigation or something?
Navigation, yes, for the orbit. So, or you can also pick, you know, what view to look at. Right now we're in top view. We can switch to, you know, different views through here. Then we have these 4 tabs on the left side of each viewport. So these have a lot of things inside. I'm only going to focus on things that are important for us as architects. So the first one has a plus sign. If I click here, we have maximize viewport, which is important. You know, make it big, right? We can do it again, restore viewport. Also, we can do here Alt plus W, right? A lot of things here work as shortcut keys. The main difference in 3D Max from Rhino and AutoCAD is what? You can't do what? Like, you can't type anything in, unfortunately. Rhino you can, AutoCAD you can. Here everything's done to a selection, right? So either a drop-down menu or to the menu here, or you know where to go here. We can type, you know, maximize the viewports. So this is important. Show grids is important, like here. If I press G, it will turn off the grid. Then we have also, let's see, create, configure. For now, I think that's it. You know, those are the key things from that part. The next one that says top, that's where you pick your viewports. I can pick perspective, orthographic, top, bottom, you know, all these things. Or eventually, when I have cameras, I can pick my cameras or lights. Right now, I have nothing there, so it's blank. And these things I'll discuss later once we make cameras. So next one here, standard. That's how the viewport, that's the quality of the viewport. Typically that depends on the quality of your computer, right? So let's say if your computer is really, really fast, you might put high quality, right? Right now it's set to standard, which I think works really well. Even my computer at home is very fast. I still keep it at standard because Max, it's a great software, but it tends to crash and will always crash. So that's a key thing that don't try to make it too much more. The rest, leave it alone for now. Last one is just how do you want to see your model? Wireframe, right? flat color, hidden lines, clay model. We'll look at those things later in class. And there's a bunch of other ones that we'll probably never use. Graphite, color pencil, these are kind of useless because these make the computer very slow. And that's pretty much it, for this part here, the 4 viewports. Next, we have this panel on the left side here. So this panel is for your layers, right? So whether in Photoshop or AutoCAD, we have always layers, right? Why are they important for us? What can we do with layers? We can organize everything by, yeah, it could be by furniture, landscapes, floors, whatever you guys want. So we'll discuss layers, eventually. Then we have also this bar down here. If you see, I can kind of go like this and go from 0 all the way to 100. So in this class, we're not going to use it, but what do you think it's there for? Huh? What else? So we could make movies or animations, right? So this is an animation scale, right? Or slides or frames, right? So how many frames do you need to make a 1 second video? Roughly. What's a typical frame rate for a movie? 30, yeah. 24 or 30 frames. So I said we'll pick 30, right? So that means to make 1 second video, I need 30 frames. That means I have to render 30 individual renderings to make 1 frame, 1 second, right? So you can see, if I want a 1 minute video, how much do I have to render? How many, individual renderings? A lot, right? Unless you have a supercomputer, right, like Disney, it doesn't work as good. And now we have Lumion, which is much quicker, and than this, right? So if you want photorealism, this is probably the best option, but it's just we don't have the computer power in this classroom. It just requires really, really fast computer, so we'll ignore that. And if you do take my other class, we'll do animations in that class. All right, the next thing here that we have is, so everything here, this bar up until here is for animations. So if I go here, for example, to the this part here, it looks like a little clock. You can see we can set up the film type, the frame speed, 30 frames per second, the speed of the film, the start time, the end time, all those things to make basic movies here. On the bottom right, all the way in the corner here, we have your zoom, zoom extends, zoom all, pan, orbit, and maximize viewport again. Right, so I can click here to make it bigger, and again. Then up here, well, actually, the most important tab here is the one here. This is where you have all your things here. So we have a bunch of different elements. The first plus sign here will give me access to primitives, right? The first one here is box, cone, sphere, all those basic shapes. Second box will give me 2D elements, lines, rectangles, circles. Then we have lights, we have cameras, and for now, those 3 we'll ignore because we're not dealing with these things. This is more like forces, push, wind, gravity. We're not doing anything that involves those things. That could be for games. So we'll focus on the first 4 here. The second one here, that's your properties tab. Whatever you pick here, it's gonna show all its properties on the over here. The third one is the hierarchy. We'll look at that eventually. And then this we're not gonna touch, but we're not doing motion. And this is display. So you can hide things depending on your, what things you wanna focus on. And we'll go into more detail as we go eventually in other parts. Then up here, some things repeat, but for us, the things that are important for us are from here going will be here. Move, rotate, and scale, right? We always use those commands.
So you select the item that you use?
Yes, we'll do that in class in the next part here. Then we have this, snaps, right? How do we snap to elements, right? If you know AutoCAD, the command is called O-snap, right? If it's in Rhino, I think it's on the bottom here, right? That has all the snap options. Here, we click here, and then we can right-click it, and we can set up all our snaps. Currently it's set to grid by default. Then we have also the angle snap toggle that limits the angles of movement. When you do a rotation, it goes at 5-degree increments, so you can get very precise with the angles. And that we can ignore. And we have material tab that we'll talk in a different class. It'll be more advanced topic. So there is a lot of things here, right? And Max is very complex because whatever you pick, there's like 20 subcategories to modify it. So it's good because you can modify everything, right? So the key things, what things can I ignore and what things are important for us. So I'm trying to focus that in our class here. So we don't go crazy looking at every single option in our project. So we covered that. And again, part of it is just getting a habit of looking at Max and experimenting with all these things that we have here. All right, so let's look at just, let's make something, right? So let's look at this viewport here. I'm not gonna look at perspective view. And I don't like to use this view. I like to use orthographic. So I'm gonna change here and go down to orthographic. I'm gonna hit, let's see, I think it's Alt W, yes, to maximize my viewport. And I'm gonna hide this grid. I don't wanna see it. What do I press?
G.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Press G. And let's make a few shapes. Right? So let's go here to the plus sign. Let's go to the sphere. And we have here a bunch of primitives. Yes, if you click here, there's more stuff, right? Lots of more stuff. There's advanced primitives, there's compound objects. For now, ignore all that stuff. And let's make a box, right? So I'm gonna click box. For now, what is that yellow thing there? Well, that's actually trying to snap to the grid, right, that we have. So I'm going to turn off the grid right now, or turn off the snaps. So this little 3 with a magnet, that's my snap. And now we can click anywhere. I'm gonna hit G again, and just click, kind of drag it out wherever you want, let go, and then push your mouse forward. And that will create the basic shape you have. But there's now a problem here, right? If you look at this shape, right, and I can, let's say I go here to select, right, and I pick it, and I go here to properties, right? What is the length, width, and height of this object? What's wrong with this? Well, yeah, but what is it? Inches, feet, decimals?
Is it in feet?
What should it be?
It should be.
So what's the first thing you do in any software before you start building? You set up the what? Units, right? So for this, we have to go to customize, unit setup, and we're gonna use US. Keep it as feet, fraction, inches, 1/32 is fine, and change the lighting units from international to US or American. And that's it. So now we have an actual size to our box, and our box is 14 feet, 7 inches, you know, plus or minus. But now let's make the box to be precise, right? So I want to make the box to be 3 by 3 by 3. So I'm just gonna change the length here, right? I just put 3 feet. Don't forget the little tick mark. That's 3 feet. 3 feet. And then the height also 3 feet. So now we are precise with this, right? Okay. Any questions? Yes.
So I create the box, but I don't know how to just stop from creating another box.
Ah, okay. So you okay? So if I go make a box here, right?
Right now.
Yes, I could go here making lots of boxes, right, like this, non-stop. Just hit escape.
Oh.
Escape will end the command of the box. Good question though. How about those people back there behind the computer? Can you guys see okay? Any questions? Yeah, you guys are okay? All right. So now that we have this, you know, how do I do this? You know, how do I go like this? How do I move this? We need pan, orbit, and zoom, right? Again, everything has like 3 different things. You could go down here to zoom, zoom all, zoom extends, and you can go here to orbit, and you can get this little wheel here to kind of rotate here. That's one way. I can hit escape. You can also go here and just move this like this. But to orbit, I like to use my keyboard. So I'll press the object, hold down the Alt key, and then press on the wheel in your mouse.
You hold all 3 of them down at the same time.
2, yes.
Okay.
So you know the wheel that has a little on top of your mouse? You can also use it as a button. So Alt key, press it, and then press on the wheel. That'll be your orbit. Also, it's important how you orbit. If you orbit like this, it's not very precise, right?
Yeah.
But when you pick the object first and you orbit, then you orbit around the center of this object, which is much more efficient. Next, how do you pan? Select the object and just press the wheel like this. So we got, and then zoom is simply just the wheel forward and backwards, right? Simple. Is it the same thing in Rhino? Because I don't use Rhino, so that's the thing I'm not sure.
It says like Revit, kind of.
Like Revit? Okay. Yeah, Revit's more like this, yes. Okay. All right, does that make sense? Okay. Also, up here, right, we have the move, rotate, and scale, right? When I do move here, I can click it, and we have access to this, right? It has no name here. I know it's called the gumball in Rhino, but and we can pick, the center to move any direction, or we can focus on just different axes here to be more precise. Up or down, doesn't really matter. But for us, is this precise? I want to move this exactly 3 feet to the right.
Click on the arrow and then type in. No,
We can't do that. That's Rhino, yes. That would be great. If I tap in the arrow here and just type in 3 feet, it would be amazing. But no, they make it more difficult. So we gotta click on the object, and see here, if I click with my left mouse, it just activates the move command. If I click with my right mouse, it activates this window where I can input data. So let's say the left side is the object's location in the 0,0 axis, right? In the world, right? The right side is where do you want to go. So if I want to move in this direction, 3 feet, am I moving the X, the Y, or the Z? X is right here.
Y.
I think it's Y. Yes, it's Y. Yes, Y is that, is the yellow one. So we do Y, and do I go +3 or -3 to go this way?
Let's say
Minus
plus.
-3. Let's start -3.
Plus.
Yes. Go back. If you make a mistake, you can go here, right? Yes.
Can't you just press like Control Z?
No, it doesn't work.
Okay.
Yes.
You want to see.
Control C doesn't work in 3D Max, unfortunately. Yes.
No, like what if you wanted to make like a copy? Like, can you do like Control C or anything?
No, this like Control A, Control C, Control V, those commands, they don't work here.
Oh,
Yes.
wow.
They work in Photoshop.
I know that.
They work in. Do they work in AutoCAD? No.
I'm not sure.
Do they work? Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
How can it work? So like you can save it and copy it and then paste it in here.
We can copy paste it. It's a different way.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. So yeah. So if we do here, say 3 feet. Wrong direction again. And again, I do Control C because it's just natural, even though it doesn't work. I keep getting it working in 3D Max. So we do the y-axis 3 feet here, there. Next one here, rotate, right? When I do rotate here, if I just click it once with my left mouse, I can just kind of play like this. It's not really precise. I can pick the axis here to rotate it. But if I do here, right click it, then I can set up the angles here. I can see on the X direction, rotate 45 degrees. Right. To go back, I do -45. And then we have scale, right? So scale, of course, you can pick the middle to do a proportional scale, or you can do the Y to stretch it. Or we can do right click it and scale versus I don't know. If you want to make it double, what do you make here? 200, right? Yeah, so you can work with those numbers. 200. If you want to make it back to what it used to be, you make it 50, right? All right. Next, how do we work with the grid if we have to, right? So right now, if I turn I get my grid on here and G, and let's look at this cubes here. Let's say I'm going to change this box to be 1 foot by 1 foot. So let's pick it, select here. Let's go to properties, right? This tab here, and let's change this to 1 foot. And let's modify this box again. Okay. And now I want to pick this box and kind of, first of all, I'm going to pick the middle here and attach this thing here, but I can't. What do I need now?
Snapping.
Snapping, right? So we're going to go to snapping here, right? Now it's being activated. If I click the right mouse, we'll bring the properties. So which snaps do I want?
Grid line.
For now, grid could work, yes. So let's give for now grid.
Point.
Endpoint could also work, yes. So I would do endpoint, let's say grid, and for now that's pretty good. All right, so how do I move this? So when I first of all pick the object, when I get close to any corner, you're gonna see a yellow box. That means that it has attached to something, right? Then I can just click my left mouse, drag it. You're gonna see a point from where it came from. And when it gets close to the box, it turns yellow and then it turns green once it's found the corner, right? There it is. So now it's there, but what's the problem? So this grid is now 1 foot grid, right? So let's change the grid to make it better. So for the grid, if you go to this little snap tool and right click it, we have here snap options, options here, home grid, and we'll go to home grid and change the grid spacing to 1 foot here from 10 inches. 1 foot, yeah, sorry. All right, now we'll do it again, select it, move it, and now it should snap nicely in that grid. All right, good. Questions? Again, this is very elementary, but we'll start, into more things eventually. I'm going to turn off the grid now, and I should turn off this the grid here, G. So, what other commands do we need to be able to function here? We know move, rotate, scale.
Copy and paste.
Copy is the one we use often, right? So copy and paste here. There's no copy command. All we do is select the object, hold down the shift key, and move it. Right, and then let go. And then it gives us 3 options to copy. We can copy as a copy as instance, or copy as reference. What do you think all that means? Why do we need 3 different ways to copy? Any ideas? No? All right, let's do an example then. So let's do it again. Let me back up here. And I'm gonna copy this box first 3 times. I want 3 boxes, so I'm gonna move it here. Let go. I'm going to copy as a copy. And I want total of 3 boxes. I need 2 more boxes here. It's gonna keep the same spacing here to the next one here. So there's my 3 boxes, and these are all identical, right? Now I'm gonna copy each one in a different row under a different condition. First one, hold down shift key. Let's copy 5 times as a copy. Next one, hold down the shift key. Copy again 5 times as an instance. And next, copy again 5 as a reference. So they're all identical, right? The boxes. Even if I do, let's say, F3. So F3 is wireframe, like this. Nothing has changed. They're all the same boxes. So why would I want to copy different ways? The first one, copy as a copy, means it makes an exact copy of every item, right? And it keeps everything. So for example, if this box was a very complex chair, right? And the chair is 10 megabytes, right? and you copy it this many times, what's gonna happen to your file?
Crash.
Maybe yes, depending on how big it is. But you're gonna get 10 megabytes, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. So your file is now 60 megabytes. And if you're working with a tree that's very nice, could be 100 megabytes. And then your file could be 5 gigabytes. And the problem is just it will crash, right? The next one is instance, right? So if I copy this box 1,000,000 times, it's still 10 megabytes because it's an exact duplicate of the original one. The main difference here is that these are all connected. So if I go to this box here and I go to properties and I change the height, they all change, right? If I click on this box and change the width, they all change, right? While here, if I change this height, I can't, right? It's all independent. The next one here, the reference, if I pick the first one and change the height, no problem. If I pick any other one, I can't. Right. So this one relies on the parent, while the middle one relies on any object. So the key thing here is to get efficient with file size, right? Because sometimes, you know, you start copying things and students come to me and their file is 5 gigabytes. It is. And that problem is that if you save it to a USB, it's gonna take 20 minutes to save. If you save it to your computer, it will most likely crash. So being efficient, and again, the bigger the file, the more time it will take to render. And you're gonna cause other problems for your computer. So it's good to know copy, instance, reference, those things. Does that make sense? Yes? Any questions?
So the best copy is instance, or like?
It depends on the situation, right? So if we do multiple things with the same thing, yes. For example, once we work with the environment and we're copying trees, whether they're 2D or 3D, then yes, instance. If you're copying furniture and you have the same chair showing up 20 times, then yes, instance, right? If you have one item, maybe two, not really a big deal. But yeah, keep that in mind when you guys copy those elements. Also, the next thing is eventually when we copy things like lights, right? Like say we go and make this room here, right? And it has all these individual lights here, right? If I go and copy all these lights as copy, and then I change the light intensity, what happens? I have to go to each light to change it. If I do copy each light as an instance, and I change one light, imagine like being a zone in your house, right? This zone controls these lights, right? One switch will control all the lights' color, intensity, whatever settings you have, right? So it makes it more efficient for those things, right? Eventually, when we do lighting, we'll group it in zones. Zone 1, Zone 2, Zone 3, right? So we can control things with those elements, right? With cameras, I wouldn't use, because if you modify one camera, it's gonna modify all of them. And eventually you might wanna change the camera lens, the camera angle, and those things probably better to be independent. So how do you right now find that 3D Max interface compared to your other softwares? Huh?
Pretty similar.
Yeah, okay. Anyone else? Compared to Rhino, how do you guys see this difference between this software? Diana?
I mean, I want to say it's like, not that it's more simpler, but it's just that the one thing that I think that sucks is that you can't actually type what you want. You actually have to know where the things are. Whereas at Rhino, like, you can actually just type it and it clears.
Yes, and if you forget, you can type the first few letters and it'll give you a hint of what's coming up, right? Yeah, so you have to memorize,
know
look.
where like everything is.
Exactly,
If you
yes.
don't, then you're kind of screwed, so.
Yes, exactly, yeah, so that's one of the problems you have there, yes. But again, eventually with time and repetition, you know, you get it. All right, so let me delete this over here. You see here, when I click here, right, I can see on my left side here, which box, right, number 18, here. So this is technically my layers, right? Although right now it's not set up for layers, it's set up for objects. But if I change here on the default here to Layer Explorer, then it goes back to a typical layer where it has hierarchy. The default layer is 0 and everything here is under layer 0, right? So for example here, let's make a new thing here. I'm gonna click here and delete everything. Right? I'm gonna make some shapes here. Let's make a box. Let's make a sphere. Let's make a cylinder. And let's make a teapot. Teapot is a shape that is always in 3D Max since day one. And we'll talk eventually why it's here. But we have 3 shapes that we have right now. And right now, all these shapes are in one layer, right? Layer number 0. Box, cylinder, sphere, teapot. Do you want to have multiple layers in 3D Max? Eventually?
Yes.
Ideally, yes, right? And what layers might you have? In a building? Yes.
The different materials like glass.
Okay, yes, what else?
Windows.
Windows, yes, furniture, right? Exactly, so, and it's good, first of all, you can hide multiple things at the same time, right? You can freeze different elements if you want to, right? But let's say, let's put these 4 elements in 4 different layers. So layer 0, I'm not going to touch, that's my default layer. But I can go here and just right click it. And then go to create layer. Then here, again, right click it and do rename. Let's call it teapot. Make one more. Let's call create layer. And I'm gonna make it simple. Let's just do shapes. Okay. So we have now 2 layers. How do I get these things to those layers now?
Select it, right click it, and then
That's the Rhino way, I think. Select it, right click it. Would that work? Remove empty create leads.
You drag it.
Yes, you drag it, yes, pretty much. So let's say I want the teapot to be here, so I select it, drag it, and put it here. There it is. Then these 3, I'm gonna select, hold down the shift key, select all 3, and drag it and drop it here. That's the basic idea of layers here. It's very simple, like any other class. And then once we have here the layers, we have shapes and teapot. We can just hide the shapes or hide the teapot. We can freeze it. And when you freeze something, you see here how they have colors, right? Eventually you might have a material, but once the object is frozen, it will always look gray. So you can tell that it's being frozen. And once there, you can't do anything, right? You can't touch it or modify it in any way. Like what?
lock.
Like a lock? Yes. The same way, yes, that works. So that's a good thing to do when your file gets very complex, because you don't want to move things by mistake and start to affect those things. Okay.
Can you put the layers part again? Like how did you put them in the layer?
Yeah, so if I make it, so let's make a new shape here. Let's make a torus, like a donut. So right now, when I make it, it'll be, you see this little green element here? That's my current layer. So whatever I make will be in that layer. So if I go to this layer here and take this torus, I can just click it, drag it, and drop it into my teapot layer. So just drag and drop. That's all you do here.
Alright. It's kinda like, looks like Rhino and Revit.
Yes, it is. Yes, a mix of Rhino and Revit. Yes, in that sense. Yes. The things for Zoom and those things are more Revit, and the drag and drop are like, yes. All right, so this is 10:15. I don't want to push the video to be too long, but let's do a few more things here before I now give you guys a break. So we did, yes, one more thing here that I forgot to mention is 3D Max tends to crash, right? So we have to set up a file backup from day one, right? So in case it crashes, you can always go back and get a backup file, right? So if you go here to customize and you go to preference, give it a second. And again, this gives you a lot of things here. For now, focus on files. And here, the auto backup over here. That's very important. So first of all, it should be enabled. And how many backup files do you want? Well, it's set up by default for 10 files. I don't think you need 10 backup files, but
2.
I like 3. I use 3, but you can put 2 if you want, yes. So I put 3, right? In case, right? And then how often should it back up? Every 15 minutes? I have mine to 5 because a lot of things happen in 5 minutes in a project.
Yeah, 5 minutes.
Yeah. But again, if your file is very big, then you might give it more time. But I do 3 backup files every 5 minutes, and I don't change that the backup name. I leave it as auto backup, and that's it, right? And then do OK. Next, where do the files go when they're backed up, in case your file crashes? So if you go to your computer, right, you go to My Documents. You're gonna see there 3D Max 2024. You're gonna see a auto back file, and you should see there. In this case, I just made the file, so it still hasn't made a third one. But you can see backup 1, 2, and 3, and you can see when the backup was saved. So the last one was at 10:09. So in case your computer crashes, the files becomes corrupt, what do? You go here, you copy this file, Control-C, you bring it back to your folder, you paste it there, and you change the name. And then you relaunch it, and that's it. You go back to working like nothing happened. Well, let's say that this is my backup file, right?
Yeah.
So let's say I'm gonna copy it right here. Let's say I go to a different folder. Where was it before? Like here, let's say here, and drop it there.
Right.
Change the name to I don't know, basic model that we're working right now. So that's my new file. Now this file, I'm going to relaunch it. Let's drop it here and do open file. Do I want to save that? Don't save because it's the same thing. And now we go back to 5 minutes ago and we had this file. And from here you can keep working like nothing happened. And that has saved my life many times with this. Okay, up to this point, you guys good? All right. What else do we need here? Yeah, so if you go here to the basic primitives, right, there's also, so at this point you guys are experimenting, right? I want you guys to create stuff, modify it, and see how it works. So make, let's say, one of each of these shapes here. Say box, cone. Because with every object, we can make the object more precise or less precise based on the geometry of the object. Tube. And a bunch of other shapes here. Okay. So let's start here. This box, right? If I click on the box here and I go to the properties, we know the size here, length, width, and height, but we have also lengths of segments for each one. If I do F3, we can see the wireframe. If I add more segments to this box, looks the same, nothing really changes. So why would I add to the box more shapes or more geometry to the box?
Maybe you want to divide them or like break them, separate it.
You could eventually, yes. What else?
Like void space.
Yes, you can use it to select the void space and modify it, exactly. What else?
Shape it.
Shape it, yes, exactly. And you have more points to snap to, right, for example. But in the box, if I give it, 100, 100, the box will not, it's the same thing, right? Nothing changes. Yes, if I do F3, it gets really crazy here, and then obviously that adds to the file size, but it won't change the shape or the quality of the shape. But if in other shapes, like let's say a sphere here, right? The sphere currently has 32 segments, right? If I do less segments, what starts happening to the sphere? Look, F3. It becomes less round, right, and less round until it's no longer a sphere, right? So you can make other shapes. So we go to 10, 9, 7, 6. So I'm hitting here also F4. So F4 highlights the geometry of the object, like this. So we can make this shape, this, until 4 is our least amount, like this. And if you want a very precise looking sphere, then you can add more sides, right? So this way, from here, you get a very nice looking round edge. Like look at this this one here, the tube, right? What do you see here? lots of straight lines, right? It all depends on how close the object is to your camera, right? If it's very close to the camera and you see this looking very messy, then add more sides. If it's really far away and you won't see it, then don't add any extra shapes. So like here, pick this tube, and we can add, sides. After 40, it's pretty clear. Everything looks nice and round. Same thing here with this shape here. We can select it. We can do, let's go to the least amount. We can do this shape, right? And eventually it becomes something cylindrical. So experiment with those elements here that we have. Next, everything in 3D Max works by modifiers. Right? If you want to extrude, you apply an extrude modifier. If you want to subtract modifier. If you want to deform the shape, you apply a deform modifier. And that's the key thing about everything in 3D Max. Everything relies on modifiers. So let's see what we can do here with this modifier. So let's take this box here. And let's copy it a few times. Let's go here and do shift. And let's do 5. Let's do 4 copies as a copy, so they're independent. So how can I change what this box looks through 3D Max? The first one is fine. Second one, right? You have an idea of twisting, right? How do I twist this box? I do a twist modifier, right? So I click the box, I go to the properties, and here, modifier list. And there's a lot of them. So all these can be applied to this box. And you can try different ones, but if you go down to twist, eventually here, you can start to play with this. You can take the box and start to shape, you can twist along the Z, the Y, or the X. And kind of play around with these things here like that. You can do also another one. Let's go here and let's pick push. Yes. Push is going to stretch the box, almost like what? What's happening to the box? We can compress it, right? Or we can almost like a balloon, right? It's starting to explode. We can do also, I don't know, there's lots of things we can try here. Let's see here. Yes, a good one that we can do here is, let's see here. There's one called smooth. But right now, nothing happens here with this one. So let's modify the box even more. So this is where we said, why would I want more sides? So let's go to this box over here, right? And we'll go back to 1, 1, and 1. Let's say I want to click on this point here, and I want to stretch it. And I want to deform the box. Right now I can't, because when I click on this box, it's tied to a parameter. I can only do length, width, and height. Right? So before I can pick individual faces and stretch them, the box needs to be what? What needs to happen to the box? I need to break that parameters. So I need to explode the box. Right? Do you know that command explode? Yeah. So again, there's no explode here, but there's something similar. If I click on the box and I right click it, and I go down to convert to editable mesh, that's the same thing as explode. So when I do convert to editable mesh, now look here, now we lose the parameters. All I can do now is select by vertex, edge, face, polygon. So polygons, I can pick the individual polygons of the box, and I could actually, stretch them. I could deform the box here. I could pick the individual vertex, so I can pick this corner, and I can pull it out, or start to make a whole different looking shape here. Like this. And create a new shape. So this tool could be good for making what in your design classes?
Weird shape objects.
Yes. So like massing models, right? Do you guys make massing models? Yeah? So this is one way, right? But again, I'm fairly limited because I can only pick these corners here. What if I had more points? So if I click on this one here, and I do F3, and this one has, let's see how many, we have let's make 5. 5 sides all around like this, really complex object. Again, select it, right click it, convert to editable mesh. If I click here vertex, now I have lots of spaces here to do stuff, right? And if I go here to polygon, I could actually select multiple things. And what am I doing now? But what's happening here now? Why is this black?
Because you pushed it inside.
I pushed too far, right?
Yeah.
If you push too far, then starts to overlap other geometry. So it's gonna be careful, but I can start going here very fast and start to modify this to create my next, let's say, building.
Created like a new surface.
Like this. And this look good? I don't know, maybe. How's that look?
Good.
But once you have this, you know, what's happening here? What are all these, what's it missing? It's not really defined, the shape, right? So if we push the idea of modifiers, right? Once you have this, how can I make it better? So let's click it again. Let's do escape. I'm gonna copy this again. Let's copy it 2 more times as a copy. And now let's apply more modifiers to make it look better. Right? Imagine doing a design project and you're doing an idea of a building and this is your massing model. I want to refine these shapes. So select it, right? Modifier list. Go here to the options here, modifier list, and let's apply, let's see, I think it was mesh smooth. No, not that one, sorry. That'll be the next. It'll be, let's go down to just the one called smooth. That defines the geometry of the box. Now look at the box now. We see every shape defined perfectly, right? And if we take it further here to the next one here, and I do double modifiers, right? I'll pick this one here, and I'll do again, mesh smooth. What's the main difference between those, right? So this was smooth, and that's mesh smooth, right? So this one refines the geometry, and this one does what? So this one still needs work. So if I click on this one here, we have some options here. We have these subdivisions. Right now it's set to 1. If I do 2, looks better, right? If I do 3, better, but past 3 really has no difference. So let's say we do 3 here. And now how does this box look? What do you guys think? It's a clear defined shape. It looks almost like a what?
Looks like clay in my opinion.
Like a clay model, right?
Yeah, it does.
And if we go one step further, how do we extract structure from a modifier? And then we'll finish the class soon. Again, modifier list, right? So if we take this shape here, right, and I copy it again here. Copy is a copy, right? And I go to this shape and I apply a modifier that is called lattice here. Lattice will extract geometry. Right now it needs to be modified because right now it's too big. So we have the struts, which are the straight parts, and we have the joints, which are the corners here. So let's make the joints a lot smaller. And this, right? Let's make the struts smaller. Point like that. We can go closer here. We can start to modify this even more. We can also add more segments if you want to make it like, you know, like this. And we can make it smaller. So in the end, I now have a what?
A net.
Yeah, net, or like a structure model based on this geometry, right? and you can start to create pretty preliminary massing models, right? This also can be used later to create, let's say, lamps or to create furniture, right? Something that could be interesting for your project. But the key thing here is that everything in Max revolves along modifiers. If I want to change the scale for the material, I apply a scale modifier, right? So, and that will be using that almost in every single command will be used modifier list somehow for our objects, right? So this is only the beginning, right? At this point, the homework is just to practice, right? Because we haven't learned to render, right? Just go through all the buttons here, experiment, try different shapes, modify the shapes, pull them apart, right? Try to apply different modifier lists to create something like this, right? So you can get familiar with the interface, right? And all the commands that are there. Next class, we'll learn how to render, right? And then on week 3, you can submit your first renderings to the class, right? Of whatever things we're building in that time. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yes? All right, so in that case, before I stop the video, any other questions? No? You seem already tired. I'm sorry? The teapot, yeah, so that's a good question here. So why is there a teapot in 3D Max here? What do you guys think?
To try out render.
Yes. This teapot has been here since day 1 of 3D Max. And the teapot is a fairly complex 3D model, right? When you start dealing with complex materials, things that are reflective, things like chrome, glass, advanced material, it's a quick shape to just apply material and test it out. Yes. That's pretty much it, It's just complex shape for doing testing. Yes. But again, if you want to put a teapot in your model, also works nicely. All right, guys, I'm gonna stop the video now. Let me find the stop button. One second.